This is Entervoid.com's VCast. Entervoid is the world's premier comics battling website. It's a place for artists of all skill levels who love comics to hone their skills through competition and collaboration. Check us out on Entervoid.com. This episode was recorded on February 18th, 2019.
Look, I'm strapping on my big girl panties. I'm getting ready to answer any questions you're willing to give me.
I am also strapping on my big girl panties. They don't fit very well, but
I'm at the bottom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another VCast. This is your host, Pyrasterran, with my now official co-host, Astrodile.
Fuck yeah, baby. I'm stuck here forever.
And with us today are ArtsandGoodies.
Hello.
Camel.
what's up?
And Pita.
Hello.
I don't know why I said it like that. I sounded weird. I sounded belated.
No, look, I said it just as strangely as you. We're having fun.
Yeah, we're the kooky twins. We're kooky. We're crazy.
We're going to start these VCasts talking about the first round of the Magical Girl Tag Team Death Tournament, which the battles have already started.
Yay.
What are your guys' thoughts on the Magical Girl teams that we have set up? Any matches that excite you? Any teams that excite you?
First, I just want to say Garland is particularly happy that this tournament is happening, and everyone's a winner, especially the ones who die. The bodies.
Oh boy.
But
Hi.
it's a fun fate for anyone who wants a terrible fate. But to go to the actual topic of the girls, the ones I'm looking forward to most are Video and Pocket's team, Gruja, Julia, and Abigail Magical Girl. Mainly just because I love Video's comics, and I miss it, because Wacky Races, their Wacky Races are some of my favorite comics on Void.
Okay, I think the battle I'm looking forward to has to be between Catherine and Elizabeth versus the two fairy tale twins, because if I remember it correctly, they both have themes of like life and death going on, so that'll be an interesting little duel. But the team I look most forward to is probably Hollow Passion and Wishton's Idol.
I'm really looking forward to Gregley and Bloombeard with Scout and Boris. That design is so goddamn, like, it's just really charming. And
also, a writer-artist team is pretty cool. Just want to add that in there.
Oh, I didn't know that was... So Bloombeard is writing and Gregley is doing the art?
Yes. Bloomberg is primarily writing, also helping with the flats, but otherwise Gregley is doing most all the art.
Sick. Well, I love Gregley's stuff. He has very cute style. And I think I'm looking forward to all these battles, a lot of new blood. I must say that I'm very saddened that I was cut. But, you know, live and let die. And hopefully my freaky weirdo fashion boy will one day come back. You never know.
Yeah, it's always stressful for us whenever we have to cut people out.
I know, I was a late one in the last tournament. I didn't think I would get in, so I think it was just fortune's wheel, you know?
Yeah. So, I'm particularly excited about the Magical Girl Tag Team Tournament, and I know we've talked about it, like, preemptively in the past, but, like, this was something that I was hoping for before Desi had given a petition for it, but I had been calling it like the Magical Gore Tournament, and so I'm really happy that Desi's the person who stepped up to the plate, being like, yeah, sign this petition. I was just like, heck yes. But I have like 4 teams that I would like to see come up in the semifinals. I actually wrote down a notepad list for this just to be prepped for it.
Oh my god, you're prepared.
I also like Scout and Boris because they have like that mentor-student relationship, but it also just kind of reminds me a little bit of like Doc and Little Mac from Punch-Out.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah! That's so...
Yeah, and you know, and if there was any kind of uniform that is probably the most practical way to help fight other girls, it's like in a sweatsuit.
Yeah, girly dresses and stuff gonna get in the way, you know, no capes. Sweatsuit, you will be basically Rock Lee destroying.
Down the athletic aesthetic But I also like Deca and Nova because it has this fairy tale origin story, kind of a twist to the magical girl themes, because they're written to be the twins of Rapunzel, which has me wondering if they're going to approach their going to approach their matches in the same kind of like Grimm Brothers fairy tale, and that would be kind of cool. I like Melody Winter and Devil's Truth simply for the fact that they are fungi-themed magical girls. I like Hollow Passion and Wish Tinged Idol Logic because the misinterpreting this, but the backstory that's written down in Hollow Passion is saying that these are like two halves of a monster that were like washed up and was disintegrated or like split in half. So now I'm wondering if they're gonna do like this Dragon Ball Z style fusion dance, come back together and just bam, just huge, just gonna wreck your shit kind of thing. And what I like about all four of these teams is that they take the basic approach of magical girls and add some kind of a twist or different kind of angle to it. I'm not saying that the other teams don't do this. I've seen at least two that have like that baseline kind of concept of like, oh, there's a student who gets magical powers. Stick out for me, but I'm not discounting the other groups. I'm just waiting to see if they do something that really pop for me. And those are my thoughts.
Yeah, like some of you, I am definitely into the team with Hollow Passion and Wish Tinged Idol Logic. Wish Tinged Idol Logic, that's it, right?
Yes.
Wish Tinged Idol Logic.
They complement
Yeah.
the characters complement each other really well. I like the red and blue dynamic between them. I like the way their powers work, the monstrousness of it. You know, being big on monsters.
Also, in particular, shoutouts to all the new people that this tournament brought. That is super awesome.
Yeah, seriously. And by the way, anyone who wins it, get ready for Golden to challenge you to an annihilation match. So it's gonna happen, and you better be terrified. I saw it in the general chat, and everything said there was gospel. So you know, watch out.
Yeah, there's gonna be a few magical girls that may pop up right after this tournament. So whoever is the champion, you may still have more to fight. We're going to move on from the magical girl talk straight into comic reviews. We got quite a few amount of comics to review.
We do comic reviews here?
What?
oh, I thought it was a baseball podcast. Oh crap! Oh shit! I gotta put in my bat.
We've got quite a few comics to review today, and all of them are just chock loaded with content. We're gonna start with a new Zoe comic, The Howling Chasm.
Whoever did that's pretty cool, if you ask me.
This is a collaboration with our very own Camel and Pita, who are right here with us.
Yeah. I was just talking about Zoe.
So, without further ado, I'm going to start on with the recap. Picking up right after the events of Blades of the Bridge, Zoe finds herself stuck in a pit so deep that light can't reach it. She's immediately confronted by a massive shape-shifting beast, but it becomes passive and shrinks when it notices one of Zoe's adventuring items, a special glowing feather. The creature explains that the pit is cursed. Its walls crumble when one attempts to climb it. But Zoe quickly learns that this curse only applies to the beast, as she seems able to easily scale the walls. Zoe agrees to carry the monster out of the pit, and in return the monster agrees to carry her belongings within its pocket dimension of body. Unbeknownst to the two, they are being watched from afar by the goddess of heroic journeys, Monomythica. Conversing with the angel Dolly and another god known as Dominio, it's revealed that the creature Zoe is helping out of the pit was kept down there for a reason.
So, I love the style of it. I love the heavy hatching that you did, Camel. All the heavy ink hatching. I love that style, and it was touched upon in the crits how like the use of color might have been like the single color might have been a little too much on certain items. Like the boots were colored when they weren't as important a focus of the story as like the feather, which wasn't colored. So maybe just some switching on that would have been good, but overall, I love the style, and I just want to mention in particular, mainly focus on the story, because, Pita, you've been doing this Zoe arc for a while, And the thing that I like the most is how you've been not only successfully foreshadowing things, but actually you've been able to like enact on those things and lead up to that stuff. Because on Void, in the time I've been here, there's a lot of things that will get foreshadowed, but just due to the artist either doing other comics or getting busy, they never get to it. Always. So that makes it super interesting, and I want to see more because you're good at on your story.
This was a good comic. I enjoyed it.
Are you powering down, dude?
Oh, baby.
It
Yes,
says
I
here.
am.
It says here. And I
Your
quote,
health
if
is
y'all
not
hear
on
me
right
yawn,
now.
it's because me brain is pooped.
I apologize. Your brain, you need to get an unpooper or a plunger or something.
You guys don't see it, but as I started that sentence, my brain came out of my mouth, and then I just stopped.
Okay, try it again. Try it again.
I'll go to the doctor. I'll talk to Garland about that later. But for now, I just want to say that this comic was concrete. It's like, my compliment is that it's concrete. Like, it's the use of hatching and the use of black and white and the concept of using color to emphasize the significance of items, be it just for the aesthetic or if it is of an emotional significance or significant to the plot itself, etc., etc. I just thought that the idea of using color to emphasize a certain point, to emphasize the, how do you say it, kind of like, for example, within the last 2 pages with Monomythica and Dominio, to use color to emphasize their power in that situation was cool. I enjoyed it, and I really feel like you two like have a very strong like potential. Well, both potential and just strong collaboration work, because you two have very different art styles, and yet you two make this work, and it works well. Story, as usual, is fucking peachy. You know, always looking forward to what's gonna happen to Zoe. I really like this look with Nito. I like them transforming from this large monster to this tiny one. And all in all, I just think that this comic was like a solid one, and I enjoyed it. In terms of critique, I guess this is like a question for Camel, because you kind of switch between having outlines for the bodies and then not having the outline at all. And it can work in some of these panels, but in other ones, such as in page 10, panel 4, the outline is kind of like random for me because you don't use this throughout the rest of the page. And there is also a moment where Pocket Nito looks very humanoid. I don't know if this was intentional or not. On page 7, panel 1, sort of like just the general face shape of this character was completely different from every other shot. But that might just be me. Also, on the subject of outlining, on page 11, panel 4, because it is switched between outlining the figures or just leaving a portion of it completely just blackened. For a second, I thought that Pocket didn't actually have a right hand. I thought it was just one hand, and I didn't notice that there was another until now. On the last few pages, I feel like, aka on the last 2 pages, I feel like a little more TLC could have been given in terms of the blending of the grayscale on these pages, because in the panels you can see that there are clear white spaces like near the characters or in the environment that doesn't seem to intentionally be there. Like, if we look at page 13's first panel, if you look at Monomythica's right shoulder, there's just these little like white spots there, but just like little ones. This is like something you could take as a nitpick, and I don't really mind it, but it's just like things I want to point out because I noticed it on the first read. And also in page 13, in that third panel, in the environment on the left side, there's just little peaks of white just on the edge. And just little things like that I noticed, but it didn't bug me. I was just like, hey, I saw this, so I just wanted to mention it. But essentially, like, this is a good comic. This is a good collaboration. The writing is solid. The artwork, I also think, is just solid. Aside from what I mentioned, it doesn't, like what I mentioned, I don't think weakens it. But there's just things I wanted to point out.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Camel and Pita, this Zoe comic is one of my favorites right now.
Hey.
Visually, it's definitely my favorite so far. You guys work together really well.
So far of the whole Zoe.
Yeah, the whole Zoe Underground saga. And I don't have much to say, especially with the first, with all the first bunch of pages, all the pages inside the pit. To me, they all look really great. There are some weaknesses that Astro pointed out that you start to see in the last pages when we're back in the light. Some of the sketching, some of the hatching feels a little too rushed compared to how meticulous and how well crafted everything inside the pit looks. And I did have a question on why Zoe agrees to help the creature get out of the pit. Other than that, I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Do we want to address Zoe's character flaw, or do we want to address the thing that was going on with your tablet?
Oh yeah, I'll say the tablet thing's pretty easy. I got a very nice drawing tablet probably a year and a half ago, and halfway during this comic, the thing just died like out of nowhere. Yeah.
Did you give it a Viking funeral?
I did. I put it on a boat and shot a flaming arrow at it, and it's all good. But from page 10 to 14, I believe that is the area when I was using a backup tablet with no screen. And I had to get used to doing that again. So a little bit of a hookup. I think you can notice I use a hatching brush that I'm very fond of. It places a whole crap ton of lines like instantly.
What program do you use? Because I want that hatching brush.
That's the Club Studio Paint, and it comes with the default. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to get any.
Dang. So that's how you don't get carpal tunnel. Wow.
I was gonna say that thing broke. That thing with the new CSP broke. So I was dealing with two things. So if you notice from page 10 to 14, I no longer have that brush, and I do think it kind of accounted for a bit of the sloppiness because I had to now do every line. Like before, I was doing most of them. Now I'm doing every single one. And
I see.
Yeah, but no, not to recuse myself. I think I still am happy with how it came out. But that is why some of the sloppiness, I think.
I'm gonna have to use that brush more now.
Very nice brush,
and hopefully not break my CSP in the process.
Yeah.
I want to say straight up.
What do you want to say?
I'm not gonna be like shame on you for not reading, but like on her character page it says for Zoe, curious, friendly, resourceful, and a little too trusting. So Zoe's too trusting of other people, and so it's gonna take a moment. Like it's gonna take a moment for her to realize, oh no, I messed up, because she accidentally did this thing and she didn't know. No one really knows. Because
I always thought Zoe's always been a bit like childlike in that way.
She's a little too trusting of others. Like that's the thing she has to not really like overcome, but she needs to grow to become more cautious of situations. And she considers what the monster said to be like a genuine apology. So
she's gonna have to learn that lesson, and I look forward to seeing you mess her up when she has in the way she has to learn that lesson.
Well, this isn't gonna be like a break her innocence a la Madoka Magica kind of thing. It's like no. I'm not one that's gonna. I don't.
Don't lose your head over it.
That's not my flavor. Yeah, that's not my flavor. It's just like, oh, I made another mistake. I need to write this.
All right.
Okay.
I guess
it sort of felt like after all these ordeals that she's been having in the underground up to this point, she would have started to gain a little more caution since she's been in danger so often. But it's not too big a deal to me. It's still a great comic, and I'm still excited to see what happens next.
Yes, and I mean, if we had the time, I wrote down this whole thing about how I got this idea and everything, but the time for that maybe for a separate recording.
Astro Arts, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I love I'll eat this comic. Astro says they eat comics. I'll eat this one before Astro does.
Oh gosh,
I don't think I can eat anymore. My brain's kind of empty, you see, so I don't know how to eat. Seems I forgot.
Eat a brain, dude. Like in Psychonaut.
I guess I'll just conclude real quick that one, this is an intended long game. Like, this is just the beginning of something, and it's part of a choice that I made when it came to creating stuff for Void that is exclusively for Void, and that was to continue or expand upon plot threads that had been introduced and had either never been finished or was left open enough to continue. And so when I found out about the Ragnarok Annihilation Royale, I loved all the entries. Are you required to read Ragnarok in order to understand what's going on? Because I plan to do my own interpretation of what happened. That's not to discredit what we're actually in the thing had made. Tip my hat to Camel and Lucia, because damn, what a good girl. But it sort just like how, like, when I lost the second round to original character tournament, I recontextualized that into how it would make sense in Zoe's story. Now, people have gotten mad in the past as far as me trying to recontextualize events that have happened outside of what I've done to put into things that I've done. But recap this, because there are elements that I've changed as it didn't work well in the context of what was going on with Zoe, or because when asking permission to use people's characters, I was told if you could not, I'd rather that you didn't. And it's like, okay. So
all right. Well, congratulations to both of you. This is a terrific comic.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move on now to a retribution battle.
Ooh.
This is the first of the two retribution battles we'll be reviewing, and the first of the two retribution battles to also have the word blood in the title. I just noticed.
My loins have been girded.
This is My Bloody Valentine, Remy Naufrage versus Gossamer Swan. We're going to start with the recap for Remy's side. Somewhere dark and isolated in New Void City, an emaciated Gossamer Swan strips in front of her captor. Cut to 19 days earlier, the NVCPD receives an anonymous call that Gossamer Swan has been missing for a week. But the caller, revealed to be the Fool, who has been living with Gossamer Swan in her apartment, refuses to give more information for fear of being incarcerated herself for her own crimes. What the Fool and the police don't know is that Gossamer Swan had been captured by the voodoo criminal Remy Naufrage. Remy plans to enslave Gossamer Swan with a month-long ritual to break her spirit and make her his slave. Try as she might, Swan can't fight the powerful voodoo magic, and worse yet, does not know who would be looking for her, as she spends so much time closing herself off from everyone around her, to the point that she feels alone. As the days go by, Swan is denied nourishment and tormented by Remy, until the 26th day arrives, when they return to the scene of Swan's abduction, taking Remy's knife and preparing for the finale of the ritual. But to Swan's fortune, the Fool stumbles upon the scene, interrupting Remy's flow long enough for Swan to pull a drastic measure, threatening her own life and forcing Remy to drop the magic barrier, keeping the Fool away. In a flash, the Fool attacks Remy, her own body shrugging off damage from Remy's voodoo reflection as she pins Remy to the ground with his own knife and takes Swan away, finally breaking the ritual and ending Swan's nightmare. But the magic red marks of enslavement around her neck and limbs will remain.
Oh, this is a good comic.
Oh man.
Oh.
This is
So
something.
I'll just start, and it's just really good. the monotone sepia brown color. Like, this is a super strong comic to start the year. Well, it's not the start of the year, but near the beginning of the year, and it's so good. Just like, not even just the art is really good, it is, but also like just the direction, like the panel where the panel sequence where Remy takes down Swan is so awesome, and I just really like that. In terms of minor crits, sometimes like the colors like go outside the lines a tiny bit. Like, this isn't something I noticed, and it's just a complete nitpick. But on some of the panels, the colors go just a tiny bit outside the lines of the characters. Like, actually, on that scene on page 6, that does happen. But I only noticed that on like my second or third read through of it. In terms of a story thing, the one thing I was curious about was why Remy's magic didn't work on the first couple hits Swan did. Like, when she kicked the knife out of his hand, knocked him into the boxes, it only went into effect once she whipped the chain in his face. So that was the only thing that stuck out a little odd story-wise for me. Otherwise, I did like the idea of him just capturing her and just, like, torturing her for this month just to break her completely. But yeah, I really, really liked this comic. It was really cool.
Yeah, I feel like this is a fantastic comic in my opinion. I like to like gauge comics on what they allow each combatant to do. So like the perfect battle is something where both of the people involved really get to shine, and they also have a lot of agency. And it's funny because this comic is kind of about the losing agency on Swan's part, but it still feels really good. I think it's a fantastic character sort of deconstruction, like really kind of digging into, Swan's character, and it's not just a grudge match. They're not just beating each other up. There's really some serious like emotional and interesting storytelling here going on, and I think that elevates that a lot. I love the red splashes all going on here. It's so nefarious and like just creepy. I really do think this is a pretty much like a perfect comic in my opinion, and that my only real critique is I think it might be just me. I think the ending is kind of weak. Like in the sense that there's this huge sort of, like genjutsu-esque, mystical force torturing Swan for days on end. You really get to feel that, man, she is trapped in here. This is pretty awful. And the resolution just being that like someone comes in and pins, I shouldn't say someone, I should say the Fool. But Fool comes in, pins him to the ground, and then and then she's gone. It felt a little bit like, oh, that's over. I think maybe one more page of like Swan like maybe waking up and really being distraught or harrowed by the experience to promise like future, character change or like, I think that would have liked that. But other than that, this is a 10 out of 10 to me. I really enjoyed this a lot.
I would not call this a 10 out of 10, but most of that is just because like of some of the things that Astro had brought up, and that has to do with how how you choreograph and how you choreograph your fight scenes and how you depict impact, like when there's contact between two opponents. Like what's been going on is that what it looks like with the initial combat is that there's a sort of floatiness in the space in between, like page 9 for panels 3, where there's like that first contact, bam, foot against palm. There's this space in between the two of them, so it's very floaty. There isn't really a contact, so there isn't a reason for there to be like that pap. This might just be the way that Cozy draws. I mean, there's just kind of floatiness with all the characters. There isn't a lot of act when it comes to like interacting with other people or interacting with the environment. I will say that page 10 of the Like the last panel on that is a great example of point of contact, because let's actually go down there, where there's like a whack of the chain right across Remy's face, just bam. You see that it's the perspective is great. There's this nice little curve, and it goes right along the action of the direction his face is facing. So bam, it's right there. That's a great depiction of your action. With like some of the angles, like at one point Remy's forearm looks like it's just taking a 90-degree angle downward when it doesn't necessarily need to. There is that the roundhouse kick, like the way that's choreographed. I had to think, which direction is she turning to do that kick, and where's he going in that impact? And it takes some time to really think that out and try to execute it in a way that be like, yes, this moment looks natural, like it's very fluid. Page 11, panel 2, where Swan's feeling like the repercussions of like smacking face. The action lines are used to show like that whiplash or that slap back. If those action lines were inverted, it would show more impact, because otherwise it just kind of looks like it's papping her up. Let me double check that. I just needed to click the next button. Yeah, like it just kind of looks like it's papping her upwards, like there's a slap coming down. Wipes across the other way, where like, okay, so it looks like the lines are swooping down from the top left to the bottom right. If you inverted that, so it'd be doing a bump up right across. It's a good thwack like that. That looks like something that would legit smack her. Entertained. It was pretty good.
Yeah, Cozy, this is a terrific comic. I think you can tell from how technical we need to get into to try and find stuff to nitpick here that you have a really strong comic. Story-wise, sometimes when people write villains winning or the villain side of a comic like this, they tend to just have the villain sort of win and that's about it, without much happening. I think what you have here for your comic is a great example of how to write the winning side of a villain's comic really well, because even though Gossamer Swan is on the losing end here, she still has an arc that she goes through, and there's still some stuff about her that we learn about through this comic. Really good storytelling. All the thematic elements are in there perfectly. I think the most I can nitpick about are maybe some logical elements. Some of the ways that his voodoo powers work seem to be a little inconsistent. From what I've read and from what you've said in Discord chat and stuff, it's the voodoo power is always on. He can try and direct it on someone, but even if it'll go off him consciously anyway. So if he steps on attack and someone's next to him, that other person's going to feel the attack, whether or not he realized it. So there's parts in the fight with Gossamer Swan where it kind of feels inconsistent. It's sort of getting confusing, and as you know, everyone is really into wanting to know how Remy's powers work. I don't know if you're intentionally making it even more confusing on purpose or not, but I think that's something that you may want to think about for a future battle, to go further into how his powers work a little more, so people don't get too confused going forward, because they like to be able to interpret it the way you intended. Concerning the kidnapping, I feel like 26 days for Void's sexiest celebrity, with no one going out to look for her. I feel like more people would have been looking for her at this point, including the police, including her friends from Armageddon. It just feels like some story elements of her. You spend a lot of time using a lot of Gossamer Swan's story elements to strengthen her arc here, to the point that it feels more glaring when you have some character arcs or some character stories of hers missing, because they would sort of break the logic of the story here. Those are my only critiques about it. The thematic elements of this are so strong that really all I had left to pick at were some of the logical leaps that the story took.
Though I will also add one logical leap that I only just thought of while we were doing this is during those 26 days, was Remy watching her constantly? Like, what would he do when he was like asleep or something like that? That's just a small non-issue, just a random thing to think about.
Just don't
The V to assume he ever sleeps. He just doesn't sleep. No, he's fine.
That's why his eyes are blacked out.
Yeah, I'm add one more thing. I kind of want to defend Remy here a little bit on the whole inconsistency with his powers thing. I think you guys are looking a little too hard into it. I think, like, okay, if Remy gets hit with a gust of air, he won't feel it. The person next to him will feel it. If Remy, like someone spits a spitball at him, like, I feel like that is so minor. What's important is that if you stab him in the face, you get stabbed in the face. I think the little niggling things about like my thought was when they're having the fight and Gossamer Swan punches him, I just thought she didn't feel it because she has adrenaline and just is like kicking ass, like the same way that she wouldn't feel if someone else punched her because she's a superhero. But she definitely would feel a chain hitting her. I think the nitpicks in that regard in his powers, I personally, I place those below actual thematic, sort of the key frames in a sense of their powers. That's.
Well, the thematic elements are definitely still strong. I just can't help but get taken out a bit if my brain starts noticing, wait, does this work? Does this not work? And sometimes that happens with it. It depends on the character, of course. But sometimes when you have a character who has like a hard rule, such as Remy's, sometimes it feels like you want to see how those rules stay consistent, and you also want to see characters, including Remy, use those rules creatively.
Yeah,
true.
On the mention of Swan and being recently Void's sexiest, since like they didn't look for her previously, I just like the idea of them being like, "Where's Swan? She's probably on a sexy vacation, just going out there." Yeah,
it is Void. People die every second in Void. It's like I should probably die.
My biggest concern is that Cozy gave us the blessing to voice this in Voidville, Enter Void's other podcast, which is just strictly doing comic readings. And I'm just thinking, who else aside from me knows how to do a Cajun accent? I'm white.
I do not understand. I read Remy, I'm like, I don't know how it sounds. I watched a lot of the season 4 or season 3 of American Horror Story.
Honestly, like, Remy, he's the one character in all of Void, I feel, who like, I can strictly imagine with a very certain voice. I can't name it, but, like, whenever I see him talk, I'm like, ooh, I can hear it. Can anyone else hear it? Hello? I can hear him.
It's been best described to me as just Gambit, but, yeah.
I think I chalk it up just me not knowing what that accent sounds like, because I'm like, I want to know. I want to hear it on the inside, but it's just...
We'll need to wait for that shit.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on now to Gossamer Swan's side. And here comes the recap. Gossamer Swan has decided to start dating again, but her latest date, Remy Naufrage, has proven to be a big mistake. She ditches Remy on the dance floor and goes so far as to delete her dating app account due to the experience. A few days later, Swan is accosted in a dark alley by Remy, who isn't done playing with her as he brandishes a knife. Swan fights back, but with Remy's voodoo magic reflecting her damage back at her, she's only hurting herself. She escapes into the woods and devises a theory for how to defeat her stalker. Her observations hold true and she uses her wind magic to attack Remy from the shadows. Unable to lock eyes on Gossamer Swan, Remy's voodoo reflection fails and he sustains massive damage to his eye. Swan combos Remy into the air, but before she can deliver the final blow, Remy's remaining eye locks on and Remy holds his breath, suffocating Swan and causing her to pass out. But Remy has suffered too much blood loss himself and passes out as well, the skull rune on his chest cracking as the two hit the waves. Moments later, Gossamer Swan rises from the waters in a ball of wind, victorious as she carries Remy's unconscious body. The souls Remy has collected throughout the years start to leak out of him, as Swan flies him towards police headquarters.
I didn't realize they fell into the waters until that recap. I thought they were just falling in the air, but then Remy passed out, which allowed Swan to wake up. But that makes a lot more sense. They went into the water. And in terms of crits, both of these comics have amazing art. Both of you are amazing artists. Like, I love the mono blue cyan scale that JC always does with their comics, and it's super good. In terms of the story, I was a little confused at first because, well, I guess it makes sense. You had to sort of reinterpret Remy's powers in a way that Swan could actually stand a chance. Because from previous comics, it's clear that it's not just eyesight for Remy. At least it didn't come off that way. So
this is J-Cat's interpretation of it. I think Cozy has already mentioned that this isn't necessarily canon.
Yeah, because like it also makes sense for J-Cat because it's like Swan doesn't really stand a chance otherwise, and that it's really hard for that otherwise. But even then, also the part with her coming out of the tree, that action confused me a little bit. But maybe that was just me. Like her attack, like. I was a little lost in the composition of that for a moment, but that was probably just me. Real quick, the ending part with all the souls coming out of the skull thing was really cool. So, yeah, that's all I had to say for real.
JC, another solid comic. Really enjoy seeing more of Swan and also seeing like her little pursuit into the love life. Well, her love life. I found the last panel of page 3 very cute because look at his face. Honestly, I think my only crit for this one is just, well, once again, the eye proportions, where the eye that's more to the side is a little more awkwardly positioned, sometimes a little too small. But that might just be me, etc., etc. I enjoyed most of this comic, really. I don't really have any qualms about it that others will have said or will say. But all in all, this is another solid comic from you, and looking forward to Swan's adventures.
Yeah. I thought this is a really solid comic. I really enjoyed it. I love the framing device with the whole date gone wrong. I think that Jay is really good at like delivering super solid, pleasant-looking, consistent comics. And I think compared to Cozy's, though, like there is a little bit less depth in the altercation. There's a little bit less going, diving into the characters, and it's not that like that's a deal breaker, but when compared with Cozy's, it is a little bit like, oh, they are just kind of fighting here. It is a good fight though, and I think also my other comment would be, J-Cat's style right now is so strong with these monotone, like the color accents and such. I not that I don't love it, but I think she's done this for a couple comics now, and I personally would really like to see maybe like another color get in there. I think it'd be really cool if she did a little more experimentation with this style she's got going, because it's so solid right now, but you can always inject a little extra something in there. So, and there is a little extra color with the whole purple accents later on, but I think more so just the fact that like the club coloring is so similar to the night coloring, maybe a little bit of a variation there. That's what I would say.
As far as the criticism I was giving Cozy, as far as coordinating fight scenes, J-Cat has pretty much nailed it because things look very solid. You have that clear point of contact when fighting against an opponent. The story to Cozy's, the story felt a little lackluster, and I think it's because J-Cat had approached this in a more well, and I guess in a less threatening way, which is to say, when in the context of this entry, Swan dates a guy that she met on like Void's Tinder, deactivates her account because it was so bad, and he ends up following her home anyway, and they have to fight. I'm just like, I don't know which scenario is worse. Actually, I do know which one's worse. It's the one Cozy did, because 26 days without like any kind of nourishment is very bad for anybody.
I've done it before. It's good.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, this was just Cat's here's my take. When it came to art, it's more because of how solid everything looked. This is not meant to be a jab at Cozy. I love Cozy's work. She knows this. It's scenes she tried to depict, it fell flat on technical level. And that's just like with anything, that's just something you improve upon with practice. But when it came to the writing, more gripping, because there was more at stake. It wasn't just the fact that Gossamer Swan had just disappeared. It's that she disappeared in plain sight, where Avery Man could not see her because voodoo magic left her invisible. She grew visibly more emaciated over time, to the point where she just strips out of desperation, because is we dancing or is we dancing?
All right, JC, visually this comic is terrific. It's my favorite of yours when it comes to the visuals. The fight's interesting, it's creative. The story, works from beginning to end. It's functional. It's just a little standard, and that's really the only real weakness about it. It's entertaining, but it doesn't grip the way that Cozy's did. And I think you've gotten to a point with your visuals where you can now start to practice on your writing for your characters and writing for comic stories to try and find creative ways to tell engaging character arcs in your comics moving forward. I could tell that this feels like you at your best currently, and I think now it's time to start looking at other avenues of your storytelling to try and get them up to speed with your visuals.
Oh, actually, thing in this comic, JC mentions, Swan mentions going to Woo Foods, and then it's brought, and it's funny how that's mentioned in this comic when in the other comic, the Fool goes to Woo Foods as well to try and find Swan. Yeah.
Hottest place in town, which also is a funny joke because Woo has 5 towers. So we're doing some jokes here. I'm doing jokes. Arts and Goodies is doing jokes. I think it's
okay. Well, congratulations, Cozy and JCat. These comics we're probably going to see these comics on the candidate list for best comics of 2019. These are terrific comics.
Yep, definitely.
We're moving on now to Boogity Bizdo's Beyond Battle for the...
It's not a battle, it is a fucking artistic statement, is what...
The latest...
I'm going to need that on my desk by tomorrow morning, stat.
Oh my god.
The latest experience that is the egg dealer.
Perfect word for it. I disassociated the entire time when I was...
Okay, so this is egg jelly jam paste, and here comes the recap. We have one.
Hey, good luck.
The egg dealer has decided to go on a picnic date with himself, finding the ideal spot in the park to devour egg-based cake, egg sandwiches, and egg soda pop, alongside his companion, the love egg, a sentient egg with limbs and pronounced... He prepares the perfect condiment for his sandwiches as he pulls out a large jar of egg jelly jam paste. but he can't open the jar, try as he might. The jar grows a face and reveals itself as a guiding spirit, and the egg dealer won't be able to partake in its contents without proving his love of eggs to the jar, by taking the jar with him to go turn more people into eggs. This is an easy task for the egg dealer, and he takes the jar with him on an egg rampage. Satisfied, the jar opens and egg dealer spreads the jelly jam paste on all his food and spends the rest of the day eating. His hedonistic frenzy leaves him morbidly obese and practically comatose. The jar blames the love egg for packing too much food, and the two duke it out before quickly coming to a truce, where the love egg will be granted beauty, while the jar is given what he's always wanted, an egg form of his own. The egg dealer awakes and happily obliges, transforming the jar into yet another egg. Deep in the egg realm of consciousness, where those turned into eggs are banished, the jar is met by the egg dealer's old foe, a surgeon who once tried to cure the egg dealer of his mania. The doctor brainwashes the jar with promise of an even more beautiful body, and recruits the jar to assist him with his plan to end the egg dealer's reign once and for all.
Oh my This is an experience.
It's something. It's something else.
You don't. It's just.
Do you want to do an interpretive dance to describe what you thought of this comic?
That is the only way you can describe the comic. It is like, and this thing I gotta say, just Boogie's just. There's a limit most of us have. Like a lot of us like have weird ideas or just crazy ideas, and we just have like maybe we'll pull it back a bit, or we just like gotta rein it in. But Boogie doesn't have that, and I fucking respect them so much for that. They just don't give a fuck. They will go all the goddamn way they please and don't care. And
Also,
that is powerful, and the most powerful thing about Boogie, and what makes them truly impressive.
Pyrus, is this a podcast for adults?
What? We're all
It's
adults.
for adults because we're just throwing fuck all over the place.
I didn't yell the F word. I think it is for adults now. After this comic, kids should not be reading this thing. They will.
Should anyone be reading this thing?
Yes. Oh
my goodness. Oh.
We need to transcend.
I left a comment on the page, and I think it sums up the battle pretty well. Is that cool? Is that uncouth?
Go ahead.
Do you want to read it?
I'm going to read it. Here we go. Okay. Passion, love, hate, disgust, beauty, desire. Every single deadly sin. This comic is a cocktail of emotions and concepts so dense that traversing it is impossible. At one moment I am disgusted, the next elated, the next disturbed, the next excited. Certain panels of this comic rocketed me into a disassociative state. As a reader, I began this comic blissfully ignorant, floating upon a cloud of ration logic, certain that the world operated upon my tangential terms. When I was informed, nay punished, with the knowledge that eggs with butts not only exist, but generate cornucopias of egg-based foods and liquids for the egg dealer, my cloud evaporated, and I plummeted into the eldritch unknown. In many ways, this comic is an analog for the extra-dimensional geometries that unfortunate explorers encounter in Lovecraft novels. My feeble human mind tried to fill in the gaps between the eggs, but soon it was nothing but eggs, 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 eggs. I feel unworthy to give criticism to this piece because it is both above and below criticism. It is a monumental artistic statement and also proof that humanity is bound for hell. Eggs are the only truth. God have mercy on my soul. That's my...
God.
Eldritch is a good term to describe egg dealer.
Definitely.
It is beyond comprehension at times.
Right, and so I'm coming from the point of view of like I've seen many things on the internet that are worse than this. This did not crack me, pardon the pun. Look, I've seen some very terrible things online. You have not broken me, Boogity Bizdo. This is not a challenge. You can't shake me.
I don't know if that reflects badly on him or you.
I was talking with Tech about this comic, and he had brought up something that pretty much describes what this is. I can very much. This is just an interpretation. That doesn't mean that this is gospel. This is the intended artist statement. Trademark. But this comic radiates horny energy.
It's so.
And what we mean by that is that it wants to be porn. It's the 10-minute dialogue before sex. That's what it is. That's what this is. And the level of ridiculousness.
You're saying it's foreplay.
It's foreplay. It's the 10-second. It's not 10-second. It's the 10-minute scripted wordplay before he shoves the egg up his butt, because we know that's where they go.
Okay, I'm down.
He shoved it in all his muscles already.
I mean, if you didn't know, called Tenga Easy on a Cap Egg. If you flicked up the commercial on YouTube, it's very telling what that is. Like, look, here's the thing. I thought it was funny. I read the Jar's dialogue like it was on the verge of being orgasmic, which made it the funniest thing for me at like 7:00 in the morning. Like this is where I am now as a person on Earth. That of all the things to not shake me, it's this comic that y'all are saying is eldritch. It is broken Desi's brain. It's just
Poor Desi. I feel really bad.
left so many people, for lack of a better term, shooketh, that I'm just here like, I mean, it just wants to be a porn. That's what it is. But like any kind of crits I would give is strictly fundamental and told. I also say 2 words. I mean, if there was anything that really got me mad, it's the concept of egg muscles. Not because it's just a ridiculous idea, but you egg-loving fool. Do you realize what will happen if you withstand enough impact in your arms? Those eggs will crush, and your flesh will bleed yolks.
And he will become stronger.
Maybe that's what he
Maybe
wants.
this is the egg dealer. Yeah, you never.
I don't know if any of us are strong enough to break those egg muscles.
They are impenetrable. By the way, I'm now into this. I used to think I was a normal person. I have a sexual fetish for eggs now after this comic. You know, that's just how it has to be. I'm sorry, but that's just how it has to be. I mean, I want to be beautiful. I want to go to the A.
Oh, Biggity Bizdo. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this comic. It is extremely entertaining, and it's refreshing to see someone make a comic, not worry at all about what anyone thinks, and just pour all everything they've got in their brain onto the page. For what it's worth, the Jar's voice in my head is the voice of Ronald Reagan. That's how I imagine the Jar speaking.
And now it is mine as well.
And listen to what the folks are giving you in comments as far as technical craft, because you still have a ways to go. Don't take the lazy route too much by stretching out the tuniness if you don't understand the physics of the regular body first. And don't ever change.
Yeah.
When it comes to
Just
your
long story short, when it comes to like, okay, this is coming from someone who does consistently draw like toony mind stuff. I see you. I see what you're trying to do. Need to learn the rules before you can break or bend them. Anatomy.
Also, another real quick technical thing is to work on your word bubbles, because it looks like whatever program you're using should have a word bubble tool, because whatever you're doing right now, it looks like you're just painting them on, and they're inconsistent. And with the word bubble tool that whatever program you would have, it would automatically have a black outline, which you should do, because there's one word thing with the black outline and the rest that don't have it. And I think they should all have that same one. And also there should be consistent tail length for the comic for the bubbles, and there should be more space in the bubbles, so because the letters get dangerously close to the edge of it.
Well, if this is Clip Studio Paint, probably is. There's at least one tutorial that we have on the forums by Jackster, which has helped me a lot in
It
regards
is a really
to
good tutorial.
making more colors. I think he was gonna teach me later about how to do lettering, but like, yeah, look for that forum. It's great. It has GIFs and everything.
Eggs are love. Eggs are life.
For those of you listening, if you haven't noticed, Astro is very tired today. But they're staying with us, and that's very much appreciated.
Astro,
Yes.
the co-host, also forcefully attached here.
I'm gonna sleep mid podcast.
This is why we need the ASMR moments.
Let's go. We should all do ASMR.
Congratulations on this experience, Boogity Bizdo. We're gonna move on to...
His name is Eldritch. No one knows how to pronounce it. It's amazing. He really is. Is it Boogity Bizdo? Is it Biggity Bosbo? Is it Bing Diddly? I don't know. I don't.
Oh, that's how I sounded it out, and so that's the pronunciation we're going for.
Yeah. We're moving on now to the second Retribution battle, and it's the second Retribution battle with the word blood in the title. This is Ghost versus Rocio. First blood. Full disclosure, Rocio is my character, and I was in this battle. We're gonna start with the recap, and this is for Ghost side. Battle cleric Rocio Valencia wanders a shipyard alone at night, searching for hostages trapped in a shipping crate. She identifies the crate that matches a photograph she carries and breaks the crate open with her hammer. To her surprise, it's empty, and that's when the vampire known as Ghost strikes from the shadows, identifying Rocio by her devil brand and knocking her into another shipping crate, closing the door behind them and leaving them both in complete darkness. Ghost dances around Rocio's attacks, smoke from his cigarette filling up the room as he toys with his captive. But Rocio is finally able to gain the upper hand with a flash of holy light to stun Ghost, and a well-placed hammer that rips a chunk of Ghost off him and sends him straight through the wall of the shipping crate. But Rocio feels woozy, and Ghost gets right back up, half his torso still gone, and reveals that the smoke that he filled the room in has been laced with anesthesia. Rocio collapses and wakes up gagged and chained to the wall of a dark room without any of her magical power available to her. Ghost enters the room, having taken some of Rocio's blood to rebuild his body, and reveals that he was the one who sent Rocio the picture to lure her to the shipyard and trap her. With his job done, Ghost meets with those who hired him, a satanic cult who pays Ghost for his services. Ghost leaves the shipyard, abandoning Rocio to the mercy of the cult.
Oh, I love the art in this. I love monotone styles and also with just limited grays. I tried that in part of my own comic, the election comic. I failed miserably at that. So I really like how you do it, and like really when it's done really well. And also, there's just a lot of good art stuff in this. However, my crit comes in the story where it's all silent, and that didn't personally work for me. Just because Ghost seems like the type who would just constantly be talking, at least, and there are definitely parts where it feels like there should be dialogue, where the empty space feels like a word bubble would be in that space. Like on page 3, when it goes showing the picture, and then there's the black before the room, that feels like a place where dialogue should have been describing how Ghost was just mocking her. Also, maybe it's also because there's sound effects in this that makes the lack of dialogue even more noticeable. But the silent comic didn't work for me in this instance, just because Ghost doesn't feel like the silent type, and there's also the sound effects. So since there's sound effects, dialogue feels like it should follow as well. But in terms of the art, I fucking love this art. So yeah, that's my crit.
Since I saw this comic before I got to read the comic before it was uploaded and published and all that, I feel like I'm not in the place to make any crits. So just want to say, like, congrats on uploading. This is a really good, excellent 1 weeker on your behalf, Shen. It's always lovely to see more of Ghost and his well, it's nice to see his shenanigans of him being a just nasty dude kicking around here. I really like the idea of him using his anesthesia cigarettes as well. But I do want to make mention, Ghost's eyes, they're supposed to like burn in the light, yes, right? And like, holy shit, like sunlight and crap, they burn.
I think that's true, yes.
Okay. As someone who also had a character whose eyes burned up, the it wasn't a scar match, so I feel like I shouldn't mention it, but typically when eyes are in intense heat, they boil and pop. Blood doesn't come out until afterwards. But that's just a fun fact about eyeballs from me. Great comic. Looking forward to seeing more Ghosts.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the monotone as well. I thought it was really solid. I thought that I think this. So both of these comics use the scroll format. You have these really, really long comics, and it's really interesting to see how that affects the action, because I've never done this before, but it looks pretty tough to do when you really don't have a horizontal space to do action. You really only have a vertical. You have very limited horizontal. And I think that on the first and third pages, I think more so the first page, the action is really well done with this tight space. I do think that specifically like right around when she blasts Ghost in the face with that heavenly blast, some of the sort of 90-degree angle that action is on, it doesn't really work for me. And then like the hit, him blasting out, like it gets a little kind of dicey around there. But I think other than that, this is really cool. I think it was worthy of the scroll format. With the having no dialogue, I thought it was good because I totally understand everything that happened. I think when it comes to a comic with no dialogue, the real question is, do you get what happened fully? And I think that for this one, with the no dialogue, I was never unsure of what the motivations were or the cool plot twist was. So I'd say this is a really solid comic.
All right, I'm just gonna reveal the level of weeaboo energy that I have, but so Ghost is very nicely dressed and is mainly battling with sick kicks. He's radiating Senator Sanji energy, okay? I don't know if anyone else gets that reference. I don't care, but that's the one thing that really popped off in my mind, being damn, badass here. Here's what I'm gonna say is an achievement of this comic, and it's not the Sanji energy. It's that when it comes to writing a comic book, and you're just relying on the pictures and the actions. Difficult about this is that you need a story that is easy enough to follow, pictures and context clues within those pictures without necessarily holding your reader's hand. She did that wonderfully. I could figure out what was going on. It's great. Could it have been a bit more of a could it have had a bigger impact without the sound effects? Possibly. I mean, we see the kick, we see the rips of the cloth, we see the crash, the bang of the of these people. I mean, we see the poof of him transforming into a rooster and flying away. So, is it necessary? No. Is it something that you could have that you put on to prove the impact of the moment? Sure. But I do agree that if we have the sound effects, then that does take away a bit of the effect of having no dialogue, just a little bit. I think this was a good comic. I do want to do something with Ghost in the future. You know this. So get ready.
Well, I was in this battle, so I can't. It's not really fair for me to comment on this. I will say that for all those of you out there that don't know, Shen is working on a webcomic in this same format. It's a format that I'm also going to be doing for my future webcomic. It's why I've been practicing with it so much lately in Void. So yeah, we have some practice on it. If any of you guys have questions on how it works, you feel free to ask us about it. What we like about it is that you can really control the pacing and focus very effectively with the scrolling format. Not that you can't with the regular format. There's just it's a stylistic thing. I'm going to move on now to Rocio's side, my comic, and here is a recap. High up in an airplane, Rocio sits in coach, not knowing that she's being stalked by the vampire known as Ghost, who takes steps to get closer and closer, laying on the charm to take a seat right next to Rocio. The two begin a friendly dialogue as Ghost learns more about Rocio, including that her loyal dog, Sachiel, is locked away in the cargo hold. This exchange doesn't last long, however. Rocio has seen through Ghost's ruse and demands he reveal his intentions. It turns out Ghost, renowned in the criminal underworld for his skill in kidnapping and human trafficking, has been hired by demonic forces to capture Rocio. He holds the lives of the passengers in the airplane hostage, threatening to kill more of them if she does not comply. Ghost believes he has checkmated Rocio with her better nature, but he underestimates her capability. Rocio has been preparing a special spell during their conversation, and upon its activation, Rocio and Ghost are teleported right off the plane and into the open air. With a flash transform, Rocio prepares to battle Ghost in the sky, but Ghost quickly adapts and dives after Rocio. His superior speed and strength, along with a limited mobility, allow him to overpower Rocio and trap her in a headlock as he plans to choke her into unconsciousness and use his parachute to bring them safely to Earth. But Ghost's plan is stopped by Sachiel, teleporting out of the plane on his own, having followed the two through the clouds. Sachiel sinks his teeth into Ghost's jugular, spraying blood into the sky. Rocio brings on the fight, as Ghost's rapid blood loss weakens him, and with some quick thinking and hammer physics, Ghost literally loses his head and the duel. Rocio pulls his parachute and hangs onto the headless body safely to the ground. Hours later, Ghost is resuscitated by the Void City Police, and Rocio is finally free to leave their headquarters. Ghost taunts Rocio, warning her that she'll never be rid of men like him. Once Rocio finally feels alone, she drops her strong facade and slumps to the ground with Sachiel, exhausted. She knows he's right.
Oh, you did a really good in general, I love your style, the way, Pyrus, I love the way you do your line list. Well, I don't know if it's lineless. I can't tell the difference between lineless and colored line stuff, but
I
your
call it
art style...
lineless.
Yeah, your lineless style is really good. You have some of the top lineless art on Void currently, and I like how you took advantage of this format, of the vertical format, by having it be them literally falling out of the sky. And that fight was really cool with all the different different angles for the boxes, and also your transitions between scenes with the black was really good in this. And also the panel with her just using the parachute of the headless Ghost is just hilarious. Just that image there is good, and that cityscape's really cool. Also, what's the text? You also have that texture thing on like the buildings. How do you do that texture thing? Because that's pretty cool.
It's sort of I grabbed the texture that I liked, and I used two versions of it. One that is overlay and one that is multiply.
That was what? Multiply?
First I make sure the texture is in grayscale, and then I made one multiply and one overlay, so that I get the elements of both the dark and the light from the texture. Just drop down the opacity with both of them to the point that I like it, and that's how I got that.
Oh, cool. Did you adjust the texture at any points? Like, did you erase part of the textures on certain parts?
Yeah, I couldn't find a texture that's that tall, so I did have to sort of repeat it a bit. But I used the erasing gradient from CSP to help blend it in.
Okay. Also, another texture question. So, when you find a texture you like, do you just like copy paste the image of that texture onto the file directly, or do you have to make it like a brush or something?
It's on its own layer,
Okay.
and depending on the page, sometimes I'll move it around, flip it, rotate it to make it look better.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I like that. And that texture is really cool. So that's my part.
Okay. I also saw this comic before it got uploaded. That's right. I saw both of them. Me. So, am I in the place to say any crits? No. But for this one, I might, just because I really love this one a lot. Pyrus, for me personally, you've had a lot of good solid comics, especially with the lineless style that you've been going for. But I think this one just might be actually my favorite. Especially like, I don't know why, but for me, what makes this comic the favorite for me is because of the colors that are going on. And others could say, that there's nothing that sticks out personally about the colors, but for me, whenever I think about your art style, the two colors that I really imagine a lot when I look at your art is red and yellow. And just looking at this comic and like your use of like how the colors kind of blend in with each other, it's a lot more form fitting. It feels a lot more natural. And it made me enjoy the comic more, especially in the final scene where they're finally about to reach the ground, and then you see the buildings and the clouds and all that. It just feels really nice to look at. I enjoyed it, especially with the addition of the textures. I feel like it really pulls it in. In terms of critique, I don't have much, once again. But I just want to point out that on panels 20 and 23, I believe, well, 24. These are the ones where she's looking at Ghost with a glare. The eye that is to the side is also a bit wonky here. It's yeah.
This is a critique that you've given me in the past, and it is one of my weaknesses. And I tried really hard throughout this comic to try and I had that in my mind. I was like, okay, where can I fix these eyeballs so Astro won't bring it up?
yeah. But this is really it's just like a little nitpick at this point, because the rest of this comic is it's solid work. And as you know, I really enjoy seeing Rocio. And I really hope to see more of her in the future. So yay, that's me.
Yeah, I really think this comic is fantastic. I also do agree. I think this is one of your strongest looking comics I think you've ever done. You totally nailed the color balance and the lineless style. It looks really natural. I think one thing I think is that I thought it was so clever with the scroll. The fact that it starts, thousands of feet up in the sky and ends in the ground. And the scroll format really mirrors that, because it's basically this giant descent from the sky to the ground. And so the scrolling movement that, one does to read it mirrors the actual movement of the characters in the space. And that is just so cool, because it also allows your action to flow. I mean, it flows so smoothly. It's like butter, just with the big, like, I like that you had small panels that showed, small movements, like hits and such. And then you had these, giant panels behind them that showed more important, like, lateral movement and like spatial movement. And, I really just love how it flowed. I think, when I said earlier with Shen's comic, it's tough to do action when you can't really move horizontal that much. I think you are this was the exception to that. You really had a fantastic action style because you kept the movement going down the whole time. And I love the visual of Rocio dragging on to the headless corpse. That's just so cool. Like, kind of funny, but mostly just badass. And yeah, this was a really good comic. I don't really know what much to critique. I think he killed it.
Let's see. Most everything that I would have talked about has already been addressed. But one thing that I do need to point out, or at least for me, was that this final panel doesn't really sell the emotional impact that Rocio might be going through, as far as the realization that you'll never be rid of scum like me. Like, push your emotions. Like, really push them as far as to better convey the intended. Because, like, what emotion is Rocio conveying at the end? Because I'm not too sure. It looks a little bit like worry, but I don't know if that's to be like. Is there like a shock or a realization? Is she just kind of upset because just keep happening? I need a little help on this.
Well, my idea was for it to be more of a just resigned exhaustion.
Yeah,
All right.
it didn't seem like it was too extreme of emotion, just because...
It's not that she realizes that he's right, is that she already knows and she's just tired.
Well, there would have been a better way of conveying this emotion other than making it look like she's trying to comfort her dog.
No, her dog's comforting her.
Yeah, but that's how the image is portrayed to me. It just looks like she's trying to comfort her dog.
Yeah, to speak about that emotion, maybe because like I was actually a little curious about that.
If there's a type of resignment or a type of being exhaustion, then like maybe
she'd like be leaning back instead of
right.
inwards.
I think just a simple eyes closed. I think if the eyes were closed, I think that would have been a little better. That would have sold it a little more if she had a real like eyes closed moment with the dog. I got the emotion contextually, but I think a little.
Like, okay, so the question that I ask when it comes to doing crits like this, it would be like, well, then how would you have done it? It's like, well, when it comes to a moment of resignment, then she'd be closed off. Like she would close herself off from other people. So part of that would be the closed eyes. It would maybe not necessarily be interacting with the dog. Like the dog would be trying to comfort her, but she's not really engaging. That's just the kind of body language that does need like some double checking and being like, well, what can I do to better convey this emotion? Like it's difficult to and convey body language. I know I'm being repetitive in this. When you're not having a character just say how they're feeling. But the two panels that are leading up to that moment are really good because she's leaning against the wall. She slides down because she's exhausted, and there come Doggo. It's like you have that good build up, but didn't quite stick the landing, and that will just be something to play with in your next comic.
Thank you everyone for the critiques, and I'm glad you all enjoyed the comic very much. As far as a visual style, I watched the whole season of Netflix's latest Carmen Sandiego animation, which
I didn't know it was out. That's cool.
It's out, and I strongly recommend you guys watch it. I think it's a really great reimagining of Carmen Sandiego, and the artistic style is something I've been trying to emulate for a while. That cartoon, the Tangled cartoon, there's a couple cartoons that I've been studying to try and get my own style down right with this lineless color thing. I tried some new things for this comic, and I'm glad it's working out.
Come on, Pirates, when are we gonna collab, huh? Monty and Rocio, come on, what the fuck is up?
Oh man, I've been getting some ideas.
When are we gonna do? Didn't you tell me a long time ago you're gonna do like a 14 comic collab with me with Collab? It's gonna be I have it in writing, so.
I don't know about that one, but I'll take your word for it.
Oh man, you get ready. Probably 10 years of work ahead of you with me with Clep. So get ready. It's gonna be a lot of work. I was into something positive, but you're screwed.
Thank you guys very much again for the critiques. Shen, thank you for battling me. You did a great comic. And we're going to move on now to the final comic of the night. This is an intro comic from a new character from MRPR.
I think it's Mr. PR.
Mr. PR. It's technically, I think, Mr. Puerto Rico, because they're Puerto Rican.
Really?
1993.
Is that?
Oh,
that's the
cool.
origin.
Yeah, that's why they're called. Yeah, that's why they're called MRPR. It's Mr. Puerto Rico, 1993. I'm guessing they were born in 1993.
Yep,
Yeah, I
sounds
think
about
so.
right.
And they're Puerto Rican, so that's why the English is sometimes a little off.
Has gotten better though. Has gotten a lot better. The English.
Yeah. So here comes the recap for Mona Lisa. Mona, a timid toon lady, walks the streets alone at night and is soon lost. She stumbles upon a gang of ruffians who confront her for nefarious purposes, but their aggressive acts awaken Mona's other personality, the homicidal maniac known as Lisa. Lisa uses her inky toon powers to eviscerate the gang and sate her bloodlust. Mona later wakes up surrounded by blood and gore and dismay for having lost control once again. We're gonna let Pita go first because Pita is very, very, very tired also.
Go to sleep.
I am stupid tired. Also, I know, for lack of a better term, the mythology behind this character. Because it's around the same time that I met Mr. PR and Cozy back in for the Technicolor tournament during DeviantArt. Tender for that. I think I don't know if she survived to the second round. Maybe she did. But I know that she came back for the one that was last year because I had submitted my girl Millie for that. And Mr. PR had been meaning to bring her over to Void for some time, and now I'm just like, oh shit, she's gonna be a heavy hitter for the Toontown tournament that's gonna be later this year. But side note, as far as origins of Lisa in the context of Technicolor tournament, script for that. That's been my first and so far only collaboration with Mr. PR, but I think that was the first time I collabed for anything involving a comic, so that was pretty cool. The evolution of the character has, specifically with the design, has definitely changed, because the baseline for the character for Mona and Lisa was that it just looked like Mona's design now. That is what she looked like as Mona and Lisa. She just dies. Now, who are you? And Lisa's like, I'm you, but taller and boobier. And I think that's great. It's a good way to it's a good way to distinguish the alter ego while also retaining some of the key elements of the character. Most importantly, her face and her hat and ink powers and yeah, I was in the morning. I'm gonna
use boobier in my lexicon now. It's a great.
No, that's not. That didn't come from me. That came from
you.
That came from Morty. Follow. It's just, oh god, I'm tired. I want to have a crit. I'm just waiting for Mona Lisa to happen.
Okay, go ahead, Arts.
Okay, so, I like that they're doing shade in this. Did they? Because I know they haven't done shade for a couple of their comics. Did they do shade in their recent comics before this one? Because I don't remember if they did.
Sure.
Because I do remember for a while they weren't doing any sort of shading, so it's good to see them do shading. However, also the character's a cool idea. I do wish there was more of an establishing shot at times, and you should Mr. PR should try to challenge themselves with more environmental shots. Also, to go on the character, I wonder, because it's sort of a cartoony extent of her just switching personalities. I wonder if it's if they'll mention that it's like that's not a that's like an exaggeration of a actual mental disorder, and because they're a toon, that's like the point. Or if you want to like make it more like grounded on like an actual like specific personality disorder. It'll be interesting to see how that's taken. Also, powers are cool, so it's good to see the shading. I do wish there was some more establishing environmental shots that were pulled out a bit further, but good. It's a pretty cool intro, pretty cool character. Look forward to seeing more.
Well, okay, let's start off. I just want to say that I'm looking forward to this character because she looks like a character you're gonna have fun with. This intro certainly indicates it with how you did her other half on page 3. Or this feels like one of the more unique, favorable expressions you've done in your comics because it's not just copy pasted. But as per usual in terms of critique, backgrounds, and also comic layout, because it was a little confusing for me because everything's kind of very cramped, so I couldn't tell necessarily what was going on, and I got a little bit confused on which parts I should read and in what order. But that might just be me. This critique is pretty short because once again my strongest one has to be backgrounds. And also, just one little minor point out is that the main dude that she's talking to, his skin color is varying a lot. He went from not dark-skinned, but medium tone in that first page last panel to clearly very pale and pasty, and then he slowly gets more darker and darker. So that was a little confusing, but that's my part.
It is Void. He could be a shapeshifter. You never know. I thought it was pretty good. I think this is a better palette for Mr. PR in the kind of nice monochromatic colors. Some of his past have been a little gaudy. I guess but like really kind of vibrant, almost like a little too much. But I thought that was good. I like that shift over. But I think other than that, I think I don't see a huge bump in improvement from his other stuff. And it's not that I don't expect the world of him, but I really do think like certain things could really be better that have been the same for a long time. And I think my main thing is I really don't think that anti-alias brush is doing him much favors anymore. I know it's a specific style, but it's I don't know. I think it's a little too rough around the edges, and I think if you just aliased it, I think it would really have a bump in the quality. That's my one thing. But other than that, I think it's a standard Mr. PR comic, and keep at it.
Mr. PR, if you've been listening, you'll know that Astor and I have been talking about your comics for a while, since you've been active, and we've been wanting to see you get out of your plateau when it comes to your artwork. And I'll give you some credit with this comic. It is better than the past couple of comics that have come out recently. Your backgrounds are more detailed. You've got cracks, you've got window frames, you've got stuff on the ground. You got a lot more going on there. And your color palette choice is better than it has been also. It's not just red is red, blue is blue. We actually have this sort of blue tint going on, this sort of blue color scheme with this being night and all. But it's a very small progression from before. I think we're still waiting for that, for your next big level up. And Camel bringing it up now actually makes a good point about the aliasing, about the way you've got your brushes on. It was novel and it worked really well for Virtua, but I don't know if it's worth using further for Mona Lisa. This is a toon character, not a digital video gamey character. You're no longer getting novelty points for a digital character with that digital brush. I think you should go back to the other style of the brush, and I think you should try and play with that to see how you can improve it with these Mona Lisa comics and with your comics in general. I still feel you haven't quite jumped off that plateau and reached a new height just yet, but you're getting there. You've made a few steps in the right direction with this comic.
Don't be afraid to jump outside your comfort zone, as they all say. But it is true, you know. I think, definitely with it being a toon, more of a vector look, I think would fit the style more. But, yeah.
Okay. Congratulations on the release of this comic and this character. MRPR, it's a pretty interesting character. I'm interested to see where you take it. And that concludes all the comic reviews for the night.
Oh, man. This is a real...
This was a long one.
This one was a doozy. In fact, Pita has already passed out.
We had to lose Pita. We were on a lifeboat, and, you know, kind of had to push her overboard, but, you know. You gotta break a couple eggs to make an omelet. Eggs are love, eggs are...
I want to thank everyone here for staying up with us. I want to thank ArtsandGoodies.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Camel. And my co-host Astrodile.
I was about to say, why didn't you mention me second? I thought we were in alphabetical order.
No, you're the co-host. You got the best for last.
Yeah, best for last.
Thanks, by the way. I guess I'm not the... I'll go crying.
This is Pyrasterran, and have a great night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Peace.